red or blue on it. It was just like niggas hustling, and Old Dog was just a nigga in the hood.
A gangster film from the early 90s, bold enough to shake all of Hollywood, shot in just 33 days by twin directors who were only 21. Menace II Society wasn't just a movie, it was a living record of America's street violence. But behind the lights were terrifying truths. A rap legend was cast, then suddenly dropped in a shocking drama. The crew filmed in real gang territory where gunfire and death could strike at any moment. And the tragedy didn't stop on screen. The young cast later faced downfall after downfall. That's why people still whisper about the Menace curse. Over 3 decades later, those secrets still make Menace II Society one of Hollywood's darkest, most controversial and haunting films. And now, as the cast reveals never-before-told stories, the truth behind the scenes proves darker than the film itself. In 1993, Hollywood was hooked on street realism after the huge success of Boys in the Hood 1991. That's when 21-year-old twins Albert and Alan Hughes burst onto the scene like a shockwave. With only $3.5 million, they shot Menace II Society in 33 days. It went on to earn more than $30 million at the box office. A massive hit that showed audiences weren't just curious, they were haunted by the brutal reality the film captured. The film also put the Hughes brothers in the Guinness Book of World Records as the youngest directors ever to helm a Hollywood feature. What made Menace II Society different was its daring cast. Mostly new faces, not yet stars. Tyron Turner played Kane Lawson, a young black man surrounded by gangs, drugs, and violence, the heart of the tragedy. Lawrence Tate was O-Dog, reckless and ruthless, yet the film's most unforgettable figure. The film also brought in big names from the world of hip-hop and the streets. MC Ite, the well-known rapper from Compton's Most Wanted, took on the role of AWACS. Alongside him was Jada Pinkett, later Jada Pinkett Smith as Ronnie, a rare glimpse of tenderness amid the chaos. And the film even featured Samuel L. Jackson in a short but unforgettable cameo. The Hughes brothers chose actors with little fame, often straight from LA's own street communities, to keep it real. That's why from the start, Menace II Society wasn't just a film, it was a warning, a mirror of America's harsh urban reality in the early 90s. But from day one, Menace II Society was surrounded by controversy. Tupac fired from Menace II Society, a scandal that shook Hollywood. In the early 90s, Tupac was rising fast, moving from rebellious rapper to multi-talented star. Audiences had just seen him in Juice 1992, where he played the haunting role of Bishop. So, when the Hughes brothers invited him to play Sharif, a former gangster who had turned to Islam, many believed it would be Tupac's next explosive performance. But things didn't go as expected. From the very first table read, Tupac clashed with the Hughes brothers. He fiercely opposed the script, arguing that Sharif felt completely fake. A guy who used to be a gangster and then suddenly he's labeled a Muslim. That's it. No past, no transformation, that makes no sense at all. Tupac didn't just speak out. He walked out of the script reading a direct public challenge to the director's authority. The atmosphere, as one person described it, was hotter than the streets of Compton. With only a $3.5 million budget and a 33-day shooting schedule, the Hughes brothers knew they couldn't afford a ticking time bomb on set. A few days later, they made the cold decision to fire Tupac Shakur. It wasn't just a production choice. It was a blow to the pride of an artist at the peak of his energy. But it didn't end there. Not long after, when Tupac ran into Alan Hughes in public, he and a group of friends attacked him. The incident shook Hollywood. This wasn't artistic conflict anymore. It had become real violence. The result, Tupac went to court and was sentenced to 15 days in jail for assault. The media pounced. Vibe magazine 1993 published Tupac's scathing words against the Hughes brothers. They don't understand anything about the reality of the streets. All they know is writing and directing. Me, I lived it. Those words were both a defense and a slap in the face to the young directors. The Hughes brothers stayed silent for years until Alan Hughes later admitted in an interview, Tupac was right that Sharif lacked depth, but he was too chaotic for us to work with. The story of Tupac versus the Hughes brothers became a notorious stain on Menace II Society. Even today, fans still debate if Tupac had never been fired, would Menace II Society have become an even greater masterpiece, deeper, harsher, more haunting, or would the entire project have collapsed under the weight of such a volatile star? One thing is certain, the Tupac vs. Hughes brothers saga is forever remembered as the darkest scandal in the history of Menace II Society, a bitter reminder of the thin line between art and reality. But if Tupac's firing shocked Hollywood, that was only the beginning. Because as people dug deeper behind the scenes of Menace II Society, they discovered the film nearly became a true rap movie. The chaotic casting process left behind a string of sensational stories that completely changed the face of the film. Casting scandal. When the rap game collided with Hollywood Eazy-E, from NWA boss to being coldly rejected. From the very start, the Hughes brothers considered Eazy-E for the role of O-Dog. With his real-life cold-blooded gangster persona, Eazy-E was almost a mirror of the character young, reckless, impulsive, willing to kill over a single word. At first, the idea thrilled rap fans, but once negotiations began, Eazy-E's true intentions surfaced. He was more interested in the soundtrack, specifically ensuring his music and NWA's tracks were used in the film. A crew member later recalled Eazy didn't come to audition. He came to take control of the project. To him, the movie was just a platform for his music. The Hughes brothers, determined to create a serious film and not just a rap showcase, immediately grew uneasy. After a few tense meetings, they cut Eazy-E from the list. It was a shocking move because it meant rejecting the godfather of gangsta rap before cameras even started rolling. The result, Eazy-E never returned to his Hollywood dream. The role of O-Dog went to Lorenz Tate, who turned the character into an icon. And Eazy-E was left behind at Hollywood's doorstep, shut out for good. MC Ren. When faith outshined the spotlight. Another NWA member considered was MC Ren, who was eyed for the role of AWACS, the seasoned gangster who also served as a mentor for the younger crew. With his deep rap voice and cold demeanor, Ren was said to fit the role so perfectly that he didn't even need to act. But just when everything seemed locked in, Ren suddenly backed out, the reason he was a devoted follower of the Nation of Islam. For Ren, stepping on screen as a killer would betray his religious faith. In a later interview, he explained, "I couldn't hold a gun and kill people on screen while I was listening to teachings about peace and reform in real life." The decision threw the Hughes brothers into confusion since AWACS was a pivotal character. But for Ren, it was non-negotiable. And just like that, Hollywood lost its chance to see MC Ren brought to life on the big screen. Spice 1, A Dream Stolen. Right before filming. Among all the near misses, the most heartbreaking may have been Spice 1. The Oakland rapper wasn't just invited, he was officially chosen to play Kane Lawson, the central figure of the entire film. He attended rehearsals, worked closely with the crew, and even appeared on some early promotional posters as Kane. Spice 1 was ready for the role of a lifetime. But Hollywood can be ruthless. Right before filming began, the Hughes brothers changed their minds. They felt Spice 1 lacked the emotional depth needed for the painful, tragic scenes near the end. He was abruptly dropped and the lead role went to Tyron Turner. Looking back with bitterness, Spice 1 recalled, "I was ready for everything. I had lived in that character. But Hollywood has its own game and I wasn't invited to play anymore." The story outraged many rap fans, but it also proved the Hughes brothers were betting on cinema itself, not just picking recognizable names from hip-hop. Ice Cube, the regret called fear of being typecast. The last name on the almost list was Ice Cube. After the massive success of Boys in the Hood, 1991 Cube had become an icon of young black men in the streets. The Hughes brothers wanted him in Menace II Society, believing he could bring both star power and dramatic weight. But Cube turned it down. His reasons sounded wise: he feared being typecast as a gangster. At the time, Cube wanted to broaden his career to move beyond the gangsta rap image and go further in Hollywood. Years later, in an interview with MTV, Cube admitted with some regret, "If I had taken the role, I would have had a second legend in my career. But at that time, I didn't want to be locked into just one image." And so Menace II Society lost the chance to feature a major face lifted by Boys in the Hood. Meanwhile, Cube went on to build a more diverse career path. Another menace that could have been. Imagine this: Eazy-E as O-Dog, MC Ren as AWACS, Spice 1 as Kane, Ice Cube in the cast, and Tupac still playing Sharif. What would Menace II Society have been then? It might not have been a film in the traditional sense, but a super rap group brought to life on screen, a cultural phenomenon unlike anything ever seen. But the Hughes brothers didn't want that. They wanted to film not a 90-minute music video, and those firings, withdrawals, and rejections shaped Menace II Society into what we know today, a dark gangster movie that still balanced cinema without being swallowed by hip-hop's spotlight. If the casting drama showed how chaotic Menace II Society was before filming even began, things grew far more dangerous once the crew stepped on set. The Hughes brothers chose to shoot right inside Jordan Downs Projects, one of Los Angeles's most notorious housing projects. And here, art and street violence fused together so tightly that even the actors sometimes couldn't tell where the movie ended and reality began. Real violence on set. From the very first day at Jordan Downs, the crew knew they were on Crips territory. The neighborhood was infamous for gang clashes and constant police presence. The Hughes brothers realized that if they wanted to film there, they had to make peace with reality. One production assistant later revealed, in Jordan Downs, you couldn't just bring in 20 bodyguards and think you'd be safe. People there didn't trust outsiders. The only way was to make them part of the movie. So instead of hiring a professional security company, the crew paid real Crips members to protect the set. But the price of that protection was a constant air of tension hanging over every scene. Many of the extras and even some cast members were locals with direct ties to gangs. That blurred the line between acting and reality in a dangerous way. Gunfire. Outside the script. Once, while filming outdoors, a group of Bloods suddenly showed up. To send a message to both the Crips and the crew, they made their presence known with threatening noise nearby. Gunshots rang out, throwing the entire set into panic and forcing production to shut down for hours. The Hughes brothers later admitted, "At that moment, we realized we weren't just filming a gangster movie, we were living inside one." MC8, the rapper who played AWACS, recalled the experience with a chilling tone. "We weren't acting, we were living it. Everyone had real guns, and sometimes I couldn't tell who was an actor and who was a gangster from the street." His words became the ultimate proof of Menace II Society's dangerous authenticity. This wasn't a Hollywood crew recreating the streets in a studio. This was a group of risk-takers bringing cameras straight into the heart of real violence. Tension. Like a tightrope, crew members often describe the constant need to look over their shoulders, never knowing when real violence might break out. At times, even the extras' real Jordan Downs residents carried weapons onto set, forcing the team to keep filming under the shadow of a trigger pull. Lorenz Tate, who played O-Dog, remembered, "Sometimes I got into character too quickly, but then I'd look around and see these Crips holding guns, and I didn't know if I was acting or about to really die." When film and life became one, that danger, strangely enough, created an energy that audiences still feel when they watch the film. The fearful eyes, the shaky footsteps, the unspoken tension in every frame, it was all real. The cast didn't have to act scared because they were living in it. That's why so many critics later called Menace II Society the most documentary-like gangster film in Hollywood. It was shot under conditions where any scene could suddenly turn into a real crime scene. And if the tension on set made Menace II Society feel like a real battleground, the secrets revealed years later by the cast and crew are even more chilling. Stories that never appeared on screen, but haunted everyone who lived through them. Revelations from the cast and crew. Lorenz Tate, O-Dog, and The Shadow. He couldn't escape. When he took on the role of O-Dog, Lorenz Tate was barely in his 20s and almost unknown in Hollywood. The Hughes brothers chose him for his eyes, half child, half demon, something rare among young actors. And Tate turned O-Dog into the perfect embodiment of reckless violence, a kid ready to pull the trigger over a single insult. On screen, O-Dog instantly became the symbol of a lost generation, fierce, rebellious, stripped of any hope for the future. But for Tate, that success carried a curse. In an interview, Tate admitted, "I never thought the role would follow me for so long. There were times I walked down the street and people didn't call me Lorenz, they called me O-Dog. And in their eyes I saw caution, like I really was that guy in real life." After filming ended, Tate confessed he lost sleep for weeks, haunted by the character even in his dreams. Fame made him a rising star, but it also branded him as a screen criminal, a dark secret Tate carried throughout his career. MC8, when rap lyrics became movie lines. MC8 from Compton's Most Wanted was already a voice of the streets before stepping onto the set. As AWACS, he poured that raw persona into every scene. What few people know is that many of AWACS's most memorable lines weren't even in the script. It revealed, There was a scene where I just said something off the cuff, and the director said, "Keep it." And that's how it became a line in the movie. We weren't acting, we were talking like ourselves. The Hughes brothers later admitted, "Without MC8, we could never have captured the real voice of the streets." His improvisation made AWACS feel alive like a gangster who had walked straight off the block and onto the screen. Real crack on set, a risky decision. One detail that made fans shiver was later revealed by Blex Media in the scene where Kane sits at the table cutting white powder. The prop wasn't fake like in most Hollywood movies. It was real crack. The reason the Hughes brothers wanted absolute authenticity. The camera captured every line being cut, every glint of light reflecting off the surface, and they believed no Hollywood prop could recreate that effect. Though still controversial, the choice showed how far the Hughes brothers were willing to go in pursuit of realism. One crew member admitted, "It was only a few seconds, but when I saw that scene on screen, I still got chills, because we knew exactly what we were looking at." One line changed the whole movie shifted in the original script. When O-Dog and Kane were insulted by the white man, the line was, "You ghetto bastard." The Hughes brothers thought it sounded cheap, lacking weight. They changed it to, "I feel sorry for your mother." That small change made all the difference. It wasn't just a crude insult anymore, it became a subtle, racially charged jab. So when O-Dog exploded after hearing it, the audience understood his rage wasn't just reckless anger, but the eruption of years of racial contempt and repression. One critic called it the scene that defined Menace II Society. The Hughes brothers themselves proudly said that moment said more than 10 pages of script ever could. Deleted scenes, the darker version that never saw the light. Even though Menace II Society was already considered one of the most violent gangster films of the 90s, the Hughes brothers still had to cut several scenes to avoid an NC-17 rating, which would have been a commercial death sentence. Among the deleted scenes were a large-scale prison riot sequence cut entirely, several extreme close-ups that showed brutality beyond what censors would allow. One actor recalled, "There was a scene we performed with so much intensity that afterward, nobody wanted to watch it again. When I heard it was cut, I felt both relieved and disappointed. Relieved because I didn't have to face it again. Disappointed because it was so real." Fans later nicknamed it the underground version of Menace II Society, a darker, harsher film that the public would never see. 3 decades later, the cast and crew still shiver with mixed feelings, pride for creating a masterpiece and trauma from what they lived through. Larenz Tate admitted, "It wasn't just a role. It was an experience that stayed with me my entire life." MC8 put it bluntly, "Nothing in that movie was fake. Everything came from the reality we lived. It was that fusion of cinema and reality that turned Menace II Society into one of the darkest, most haunting, and unforgettable works of Hollywood's 90s. When it premiered, Menace II Society became a cultural explosion. Audiences praised it, critics hailed it, and the Hughes brothers were catapulted straight into the ranks of Hollywood's most talented young directors. But behind the glory was a grim reality. The very people who had helped create this legend would later fall into tragedies of their own. Fans began whispering something terrifying. The Menace Curse, a film that was a triumph on screen, but whose cast almost never found happy endings in real life. The Menace Curse, the cast's fate. After the film, Tyron Turner, a star who burned bright, then faded. In the film, Tyron Turner played Kane Lawson, a young man torn between violence and the hope for a better life. His character was the heart of Menace II Society, inspiring both sympathy and anger from audiences. That role should have made Turner a top Hollywood star, but reality was cruel. After Menace, Turner nearly disappeared from the big screen. He never landed another major leading role. Instead, he shifted into writing scripts for hip-hop projects and working behind the scenes. Occasionally, he popped up in sitcoms or rap music videos, but his film career never took off again. Many fans called him a real-life Kane because he too seemed trapped in the cycle from great expectations to bitter disappointment. According to estimates, Tyron Turner's net worth is only around $100,000 to $300,000, a modest figure, compared to the expectations placed on the soul of Menace II Society. Larenz Tate, successful but forever. O-Dog, unlike Turner, Larenz Tate built a stronger career. After Menace, he shined in Dead Presidents 1995, appeared in the Oscar-winning Crash 2004, and later stood out in the TV series Power. But despite proving his versatility, Tate never escaped the shadow of O-Dog. Even today, when people hear his name, they immediately think of the teenage killer with cold eyes and a shaky trigger finger. Tate once admitted, "There were times I wanted to escape O-Dog, but the more I ran, the more the role chased me. It was both a blessing and a curse." He's also one of the few stars from the film to maintain a clean image, avoiding major scandals, while still enjoying steady fan support. According to Celebrity Net Worth, Larenz Tate is now worth about $2 to $2.5 million. He lives in Los Angeles with his wife and 3 children, and he continues to work in film and television. Yet audiences still remember him first and foremost as O-Dog, a role that was both his breakthrough and his lifelong curse. MC8, the legendary rapper. A brief actor, MC8, member of Compton's Most Wanted, brought the raw essence of the streets to Menace II Society through his character AWACS. He didn't need to act much. His presence alone radiated the weary, hardened yet lost aura of a veteran gangster. As AWACS, MC8 was praised for delivering rare authenticity. But his film career ended quickly. After Menace 8 returned fully to music, releasing albums, and even lending his voice to video game projects like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. In film, though, he left almost no further mark. His character, a seasoned elder trapped in a dead end, seemed to mirror his own fate celebrated in hip-hop, but only a fleeting name in Hollywood. Today, MC8's net worth is estimated at around $400,000 to $500,000. He still performs, appears on hip-hop shows and podcasts, but his acting career essentially closed with Menace II Society. Jada Pinkett Smith, the bright light, the wealthiest star among the cast of Menace II Society. Jada Pinkett Smith. Ronnie broke out the strongest. After playing a faint light in the darkness, she quickly rose to A-list status, starring in blockbusters like The Nutty Professor, 1996, The Matrix Reloaded, 2003, Collateral 2004, and the series Gotham. She married Will Smith, one of Hollywood's richest stars. Despite a marriage clouded by scandals, Jada continues to act and produce. According to Forbes, her net worth is around $50 million, making her one of the rare winners to emerge from the Menace cast. Yet, in the eyes of many fans, Ronnie remains the only light of Menace, while Jada has had to face the weight of her personal controversies later in life. Samuel L. Jackson, from cameo to global icon. In the film, Samuel L. Jackson appears only briefly as Kane's father, but his career skyrocketed in ways no one expected. Pulp Fiction, Star Wars, Marvel's Avengers. Today, Jackson is considered the highest-grossing actor of all time, with a net worth of over $250 million. His success stands in sharp contrast to Tyrone Turner, or MC8, proof that the Menace curse didn't touch everyone, but it haunted much of the young cast. Meanwhile, some supporting actors disappeared completely from the screen, or slipped into legal troubles and personal scandals, fading from memory. The Menace curse. Why does it exist? Fans and critics often describe the Menace curse as a strange destiny, a film that exploded culturally yet left its cast without lasting Hollywood glory. Some argue it's because the film was too real, too dark. The roles clung to the actors, making it nearly impossible to break free and transform. Larenz Tate was forever O-Dog, while Tyrone Turner was seen as a real-life Kane. Others believe Menace II Society was simply a product of its unstable times. Most of the actors were young, lacked industry support, and when the film ended, they couldn't leverage its brief spotlight to break through. Whatever the reason, the Menace curse still haunts fans. Because with a film this explosive, the cast should have become legends. Instead, they carried more tragedy than triumph. What keeps Menace II Society alive more than 3 decades later is not just fan debates, but the legacy it left behind in Hollywood, a legacy both celebrated by critics and shrouded in an eerie silence about its dark behind-the-scenes scandals. Legacy and Hollywood's silence. Menace II Society wasn't just entertainment. It was a punch straight to America's face in the early 90s, where street violence, race, and lost youth were an everyday reality. The film earned widespread critical acclaim. On Rotten Tomatoes, it holds an 85% score, an impressive number for an independent gangster film made with a budget of just $3.5 million. On Metacritic, it scored 76/100, rated as generally favorable reviews. Most notably, the legendary critics Siskel and Ebert named Menace II Society one of the best films of 1993. To them, the film didn't just portray dark realities, it touched on a social truth Hollywood rarely dared to face. Other critics labeled Menace as anti-urban. Unlike John Singleton's Boys in the Hood 1991, which carried a message of hope, Menace was unrelenting darkness where death itself felt like destiny. Criterion and the 4K resurrection. Nearly 30 years after its release, Menace II Society refused to fade with time. In 2021, Criterion Collection, a brand reserved only for cinema's timeless masterpieces, decided to bring the film back in a 4K UHD edition. This wasn't just a re-release. It was a statement Menace II Society had transcended the boundaries of a gangster movie, becoming a living cultural document. The Criterion version not only restored image and sound, but also included rare behind-the-scenes footage interviews with the cast and directors and in-depth critical essays. For younger audiences who never lived through the 90s, it was their first chance to step into the darkness of Menace. For those who saw it when it premiered, the 4K edition became a time machine carrying them back to the era when the film shook Hollywood to its core. Criterion's decision turned Menace II Society from a controversial film into an official part of American cinematic heritage, a place where art and reality collide, leaving behind a legacy both proud and haunted. Cultural impact. From hip-hop to Hollywood. The film left a lasting impact on hip-hop culture. Kanye West once declared, "This is the movie I've watched the most." Rappers from Nas to Kendrick Lamar have referenced Menace as part of their collective memory. Lines of dialogue. O-Dog's image and Kane's death all became cultural memes within the black community. Even in the age of social media, clips from the film are still shared as symbols of youth rage, social injustice, and the endless cycle with no escape. But Hollywood chose silence. Despite the praise and recognition, Hollywood seemed eager to avoid the film's darker truths. Tupac's firing and his later assault on the director were rarely mentioned in official documentaries. The claim that real crack was used in a scene was never confirmed by Hollywood. The dangerous days shooting in Jordan Downs with violence lurking nearby were only passed down through cast and crew stories. That silence gave the film a ghostly aura. Menace II Society wasn't just dark on screen, it was shadowed by scandals Hollywood wanted buried. And perhaps it was this very silence that made Menace even more legendary. Because what's hidden always fuels the public's hunger and obsession. Today, Menace II Society is seen as a milestone in American cinema and a testament to Hollywood's brutality. It paved the way for later gangster films, from Paid in Full to Hustle and Flow. But it also left behind a curse for its cast and a legacy wrapped in silence. In other words, Menace II Society is an incomplete legend, brilliant in artistry, but haunted in human fate. More than 30 years have passed, yet Menace II Society still chills audiences. It wasn't just a film. It was a living record of America's urban violence in the 1990s. The Hughes brothers dared to place cameras in places most people wouldn't even step foot in, and they brought that reality to the screen raw and unforgiving.